So hi everybody, thank you for showing up, everyone who's here, and hello to those people who will be listening to the recording as well. So I'm Faye Johnstone. My website is fayejohnstone.com, very easy to remember, and I have been on my shamanic path, sort of, I feel like officially, for the last 10 years or so. But for me, it all started way back when I was in my early 20s and I was in Ecuador as a student, and I was just so happened to be invited to a ceremony, a shamanic ceremony, and I had no idea what I was walking into. I was 20 years old. I was a student. I wasn't really on a spiritual journey other than, going to bars and drinking rum and enjoying the culture of being in this, enjoying traveling. And this experience with this shaman, this curandero, Pepe, just totally blew my mind. And it really introduced me to absolutely another reality, another way of being in this world, and it really helped me to question a lot of things. And it was like a light bulb was turned on within me. So that doesn't mean to say that my life completely changed, but it was definitely the start of something opening within me, and it took me many more years to sort of get to the stage where I was actually sitting in drumming circles. I learned the Reiki drum technique in 2009, and that is a technique where you combine Reiki with the use of a handheld drum. And that actually was like it opened this can of worms for me, and I just thought I need to know more about shamanism, because so many sort of synchronicities started happening, and that was really when, if you like, things really started opening up with my spirit guides. And anyway, if you know my work and you follow my story, that's really what all sort of these series of events led me to connecting with plants and writing my first book, Plants That Speak, Souls That Sing, etc., which really defines the way I work now. So I call myself a shamanic herbalist because I'm not a traditional herbalist. I don't necessarily make lotions and potions anymore, and if I do, I imbue them with the spirit of plants, and I connect in the spirit world, particularly to the plant world. So you may find yourself drawn to shamanism for a variety of reasons, and I can see lots of people here very curious. So it's interesting to know, actually. So if there's anyone wants to comment about what kind of draws you to the shamanic practice. So when we think about shamanism, so anyway, I'm just going to let me tell you what the plan is today. I'm going to talk a little bit about shamanism, about kind of what it is traditionally, and then how we work with it in the 21st century in Western society, and how that means how you can practice some of the techniques so that you can access this guidance and to connect with the other realms in the spirit world, which is what the shaman is known for traditionally. And we're going to also then, I'll get my drum and we're going to do a journey together, okay? And then at the end I can answer any questions. If you have questions while I go along, just pop them in the chat and we'll get to them later. So just to think about, what is shamanism? So there's a definition here, which I'll read to you. It's the practice of embodying and communicating with the vibratory consciousness that runs throughout the universe, that is basically nature, that is basically us. So the shaman's view of the world is that everything has a spirit. It's an animistic view of the world. And traditionally, we think of the shaman as, I suppose, shamanism really is one of the oldest forms of spiritual practice. And I'm very fortunate. I've visited a lot of prehistoric caves, and I've seen a lot of prehistoric cave paintings, and there are some beautiful depictions just created from cultures that were so connected to the rhythm of life, the rhythm of the earth. So, and I think anthropologists worldwide agree that actually worldwide, there's this fundamental, what we know as shamanic culture, but this connection that it's a practice that honors the earth and connects to the spirit of all things. And when we think of shamanism today, we actually look to the indigenous cultures like the Curanderos in the Amazon, or the Tungus tribes in Siberia, the Sami people, or African shamanic practices. There are actually shamanic practice, indigenous practices still going on in so many different areas of the world, and it's actually completely fascinating when you start researching and looking at it. And the thing is, I think what fascinates us most of all is because we've actually lost this connection in the Western world. And it's most likely, though, that our ancestors were shamanic people. We have Celtic practice here, Celtic connections in our ancestors here in the UK, and the Druid practices. So this shamanic practice, this earthy practice of connecting with the spirit of all things and honoring the seasons and cycles of life, this is innate. It's really an innate practice that humans do, and this is the origins of shamanism. But as I'm saying here, we don't have it. We don't have this in our culture today. So we traditionally think of the medicine person. We might think of the medicine woman, or the medicine person in a tribe. We've lost our shamanic heritage, and instead we've replaced it with doctors, vets, priests, dowsers, mediums, philosophers. So what we've done is we've actually we've kind of shifted this form of spirituality, and we've given it lots of different roles. So the shamanism works really in harmony with the spirit of all things, and it calls upon these forces of nature for healing in order to maintain this balance between man and his community and the wider community in nature, in the landscape that surrounds him. So there is this interconnectivity with all of life, and this is why I'm really drawn to it, because I just feel it creates this sense of magic and connection, and that's something that we are really missing here. I see it a lot in my clients, and it's a form of depression that we just feel we've got this perceived separation from the world around us. But so what does the shaman do? The shaman works by calling upon helping spirits, and the shaman will therefore then navigate other worlds, different worlds, and other dimensions to bring healing or receive guidance from the spirit world. So what we say is that the shaman walks with one foot in the spirit world and one in this reality. And the shaman does this to walk between worlds, to access power, energy, wisdom, anything that is needed. And so what we have this reality that we're in now. We have also a reality that happens when we dream. Remember, the brain can't tell the difference if you're having a dream that you're being chased, or if you're physically being chased. The brain actually, it can't tell the difference. It thinks it's the same thing. So we have a dreamtime reality, and in fact, the Aboriginals of Australia, they call it the dream time. When you access the shamanic worlds. So the shaman I suppose shamanic practice these days is very famed for what's called the shaman's journey, and that's what we're going to do a bit later on with the drum. And this journey, if you like, is a conscious daydream, and it's fueled by our imagination and our experience. And it's a way of us connecting to our subconscious. And traditionally, so I suppose what's happened for the Western shamanism is that as I said, we don't have this culture anymore. I don't come from this long line of traditional shamanic people. So we kind of look to the indigenous cultures around the world. And so when was it? Probably about 40 years ago, and there was an anthropologist and many people researching, and they found these traditional practices in these indigenous tribes across the world and sort of put them all together. And this really is how we work as a 21st century shamanic practitioner in this day and age. This is how we work with these traditional shamanic techniques. And one way of looking at the world through the shaman's eyes is that in these other worlds that the shaman accesses what's known as a lower world, a middle world, and an upper world. And these different worlds are accessed in different ways, and they connect us to different aspects. So if we went up to the upper world, for example, we might be accessing angelic realms or divine cosmic connections, star beings. If we access the middle world, for example, we might be accessing a kind of spiritual dimension of actually this reality here. And if we access the lower world, that is where we might be meeting with animal spirits and crystals, where we can connect there. So these different aspects of the shaman's universe, we can explore them to discover different dimensions, to work with different guides, and to basically bring back healing for ourselves and our community. So the traditional role of the shaman really is to connect with these invisible energies which are out there in this field of consciousness. So we know that we are not our physical body, and we know that even though the desk that I'm sitting at and the chair I'm sitting on feels solid, it's actually a pulse it's in the field. It's a pulse of molecules and atoms, and they're just pulsing at a certain vibration. So what we do to what the shaman does by the use of the journey is access this consciousness, this vibration of all things. And it's almost like, so for me, when we're able to access this, and we do this in the Western world generally by using the drum. There are other methods which I'll talk about in a minute, but we access this, and I feel like it's like we're connecting. When we go into this kind of trance state, the brainwave, the patterns in our brainwaves change, and they slow down, and we're able to access almost like a deep meditative trance state. And it brings the hemispheres of our brain into balance, which helps us to access our intuition. So in a sense, it helps us to really slow down and kind of come out of this physical reality which we've created for ourselves, which can be quite demanding and stressful and a little bit fraught. And it brings us back into this connection with this vibratory consciousness that is kind of everything. So sometimes I feel like when I start beating my drum, it's like I'm pressing the reset button. And when I'm doing this for a client, I'm able to go into the field and feel where things are, where patterns have started to shape, and they are out of alignment or out of harmony really with the heartbeat of the world, with the heartbeat of the earth. So the idea of the shaman really is to bring back wisdom, healing, guidance, community, to sort of wholeness, restoring wholeness for a client, for a community, for a village, and to get us back into connection with our divine nature. So I've mentioned some traditional techniques and roles that the shaman might perform, and these, it was discovered that, indigenous cultures that still had the shamanic lifestyle were using these techniques. And so there might be things like extraction, traditional shamanic techniques of removing energies that don't belong to a client, that might have got stuck into a client. Traditional techniques such as cord cutting, releasing attachments to people, situations, places, etc., etc. We also talk about soul retrieval and soul restoration, which is the practice of going into the field and bringing back fragments of somebody's soul which might have been misplaced or forgotten about, or through trauma they might have been pushed away, kind of being lost or abandoned by somebody. We talk about power retrieval, and this is how a lot of people come to shamanism, because they get all excited about power animals. So we could talk about that as well. And so the power retrieval, I mean, it is really exciting. And for me, I think the practice of shamanism has really brought back power that I had given away or lost throughout the course of growing up. And so bringing back power, and you know, we can do this ourselves when we journey with the drum, is we can bring back an aspect of our power that, yeah, we might have given it away. A situation might have caused that. So what we can do when we work with the drum is we can go into the field, we can reclaim that, and we can bring it back. Again, this is the concept of restoring wholeness to ourselves, bringing us back into the rhythm that we should be walking. You know, we can also heal ancestral patterns. The shaman might also work with something known as psychopomp, which I find a really funny name. But what it means is, it basically means we work with helping souls that have passed on, but they've got stuck here, rather than passing on to a divine source. And you might also find the shaman assisting with death, transition, and healing all sorts of curses and hexes and all these sorts of things, and healing land as well. That's one of the things which is a really lovely thing to do, is to heal space. And shaman all over the world focus not only on working with clients, but working with global situations as well, because it's a very, really, we know that by healing ourselves, we heal our community. And so the work of the shaman really is all about kind of community and sort of the working for the greater good, I suppose. Another way of thinking of the shaman, or that word, the word is actually a Tungus word from this, it's a Siberian word, it's from this tribe in Siberia. And it's actually, so they translate it as one who knows, or one who sees in the dark. So that is really referring to that knowing that comes when you're navigating these other worlds. You're navigating and you're feeling your way. Shamanism is a very sensory experience. It's not just watching a movie, having a guided visualization. It's very visceral. You might even smell fragrances in the air, or have a sense of a place running through your body. And I'm sure if you've ever experienced a really intense dream, that's that sort of same experience. You feel it in your body. You really feel as if you're there, and that's really what the true sort of experience of a shamanic journey is like. So I believe, and that we've all got this shamanic nature. It's really to sort of connect with the pulse of the earth that flows through the earth, that flows through all living things, and feel our way, you know, an intuitive way of living and being in the world, sort of being in the flow, if you like. This is our essential nature. This is our essential shamanic nature. And, you know, we've all experienced, you know, those experiences when we're really in the flow and everything seems to be going very well. And then we'll bump into something which is resistance. And that is really, that's where the shaman looking through shaman eyes would look at it and go, oh, okay, what's this? Whereas what we tend to do through life is we bump into resistance and we start pushing, we push against stuff, or we try and push something away, or we ignore it and try and go around it. So the shaman's path is a very curious, fun way of looking at things. And it's because the idea is that if we're bumping into something, we need to take a second look at it. We need to shine the light on it, and we need to go, oh, hi, what's this? because then we can incorporate it and feel whole rather than pushing something away from us, which is what we tend to do as we go through life. So what we do, so let's think about shamanic tools for a minute. I'll see what I've got here in terms of my tools. So what I'm talking about mostly actually is, so I've been mentioning the shamanic journey, and this is one way. So one way that we get into the shamanic state of being and the sort of the altered state of consciousness is what we do traditionally here in the West is we use a drum. So this is the frame drum. This is a drum which I made when I was living in Canada. And traditionally the frame drum was used by Siberian cultures. And if you think about it, in the Amazon, you know, this drum, it already sounds, you know, I'm here in Scotland, it's a pretty damp day, and that skin is not warm enough. So that has a very flat sound today, so I'm not going to be playing that. But traditionally, the animal skin drum, that's not something they use in the Amazon. They use psychoactive plants to get into this altered state of mind. Some tribes will use drums, they'll use rattles, they'll use chanting. You know, we think of the Sufis, for example, who are the whirling dervishes. So they get into this ecstatic dance. So what we do in the West, because it's the easiest form to do. So we either can have an audio of a drum, we can record ourselves playing a drum, or we can play a drum, or we can clap our hands, we can chant. There are so many different ways of accessing these other realms. We can get some, if you're an experienced meditator, you can get into deep meditation and access that sort of altered state of consciousness in that way. So the easiest way, and we can do automatic writing, for example. We can work with dreams and omens in nature. We can intuit with nature, dreams and omens in the landscape. What else is there? I think I've covered quite a few. So anyway, just talking about the frame drum. So it's actually really wonderful when you look into the history of the frame drum. It's been around for centuries. And it's very, very beautiful experience to work with the drum. So if ever possible, if you ever get the opportunity to make your own, I totally would encourage that. So the drum, obviously, so the drum has a spirit. Shamanism, there's a spirit in everything. So there's a spirit in my drum, and actually the spirit of this drum comes from, there's hemlock wood, which is what the frame is made of. And then there's the skin itself, which is made from a deer. And then actually also you can see my drum is dyed. I've actually dyed that with walnut. So that's a pretty powerful combination there in this drum. My drum does have a name, and my drum does sing to me I can hear my drum calling to me sometimes if I have not been working with my drum for a while. So you form very strong bonds with the drums that you use. So that's one, and I'll just show you another one because we're not always able to make our own instruments. But this is a Remo handheld drum here. These are brilliant, I have to say. I think this is probably a 14-incher. And the great thing about these is they're synthetic, so they're vegan. So if you don't like the idea of using animal skins, then these are vegan. But the great thing about them, I have to say, is that they sound brilliant. You can hear that already. They sound brilliant in whatever weather. So I've been drumming in the rain in this, and the tone and the sound is absolutely brilliant. So yeah, this is another one of my special drums. And actually each of my drums over time, I just use them for different things. I've also got several rattles which I use, and I just want to say that the power in shamanic tools, the power doesn't come from the tool, it really comes from an intention. So I'm really fortunate that this, for example, was gifted to me. So this rattle was made by one of my shamanic teachers, which she gifted to me. And so it has I have a lot of attachment to this. It's my beautiful rattle, but also I'm just reaching behind to show you these ones. This is really special to me too. It's a very powerful rattle, which I use when I'm calling in the spirit world. And this is actually a maraca that I got in the airport when I was on my way back from Cuba. So this is just, I just want to show you in a very light-hearted way that tools are whatever we make them, and you can make your own rattle, for example. If you wanted to, you know, put rice in or some dried beans in a jar, that's going to make a pretty good sound, the repetitive beat. So and you know, even clapping and sort of clicking your fingers and stuff will help you access this kind of state of altered consciousness. But so all over the world, there's even bee medicine. I've talked about the psychoactive plants, rhythmic dance, mirrors, costumes, masks, all that sort of thing. So what else do I want to cover? I just want to cover a few more things, I think, before we do the drumming journey. Yeah, just to talk about guides a little bit. So when we start to connect with these other realms, it's really nice to have a guide with us. And if you do any type of spiritual practice, if you do like Reiki or other types of things, you might already be familiar with the concept of guides. But when you start to journey, that's almost one of the first journeys which I suggest you do, is to ask for a guide and meet a guide. And this is where people start to meet power animals, because often it's an animal that will come forward to connect with you. And the guides, I just want to say really that guides, there are spiritual allies and friends. They should make us feel really good, rather than, so, you know, that's how to recognize a guide, is someone that makes you feel good. You will sense into the vibration, and you might not even, if you're doing a journey with the intention to meet with a guide, it might actually be that you can't see the guide. You might just have a sense, you might have a vibration, there might be a color or a feeling that comes, but there won't actually be, it's not like, you know, it might not actually be, you know, a person in human form coming to go, hi, Carol, I'm going to be your guide, and I'm going to teach you all about the shamanic world. You know, it doesn't work like that. When we connect and we go on the shamanic journey, everything is a metaphor. Everything that shows up is part of the answer to the question that we're holding in our heart, okay? So it can be kind of annoying and frustrating when you want a very straightforward answer to something, but I'm afraid that is not how the connection with the spirit world really works. So if you've got any specific questions about guides, then pop them in. All I'll say about that really is, when you're journeying and you practice journeying, you know, keep asking. If you think, oh, I've just been asking for a guide and one hasn't come yet, keep asking, keep trying, keep persevering, and being open to what comes, because they will come to us in very different ways. And actually, that's something I want to say right off the bat here now, is that let's never put shamanism in a box. Never say, oh, well, I heard this thing and Faye said this about it. You know, if we put shamanism in a box, if we define it with a label and say, well, shamanism is this and the shamanic journey is this, well, then we're totally diminishing its power. It's whatever you're called, however you are called to connect with the spirit world. So a typical shamanic journey, one that we're going to do now, is using the handheld drum, the repetitive beat of the drum, to help us shift our brain waves, to help slow down the brain, to help synchronize the hemispheres of the brain, so we can access a different state of consciousness. That's what we're doing. But if you find that actually walking through nature, or dancing through nature, or automatic writing, or deep meditation, or listening to a favorite chill out track does it for you, then that might be your way of journeying, if you like. And if the concept of the three worlds bamboozles you, as it does me a lot of the time, then lose that concept and ask to be guided. Okay, you know, you will be shown. It's called, shamanism is called the process of direct revelation. And for a while I just was like, yeah, I don't really understand what that means. But what it actually means is that it will be revealed to you through your experience. So my experience is my experience, and I'm speaking to you from my experience, but your experience will be unique. And so it's all about trying and finding out how you personally connect with the spirit world, how you personally like to journey. So for example, talking about the shamanic journey, you know, traditionally, you know, when I was taught all those years ago, it was like, right, get the blindfold on, lie down, get yourself comfy, cozy in your blanket, press play on the cassette player. You know, that's how long ago it was. Press play on the cassette player and listen to the drumming track, and, you know, follow the instructions. So, and my style of journeying has changed now because I have got much more used to picking up my drum or walking out in nature, and I have a closer connection with spirit guides. And it's really, you know, it's the connection with our spirit world, the spirit world and our spirit guides that creates the strong connection and the revelation for us. So, and we only get that through practice. So you can read as many books as you like, and I actually do suggest, I suggest that you read about it, that you read about shamanism, that you follow what speaks to you and what lights you up, because that's how you're gonna sort of discover how varied it is, and also what appeals to you. So in terms of, so I just want to move on now to talk to the journey, because I feel like I've been talking too much. So just talking about, so the typical shamanic journey, we're going to do it today through the drum. But the most important thing really, before we do any journey, there's two really important things to do. One is to prepare yourself and your space, and the second is to journey with an intention. So the third is the actual journey itself, being open to the experience. And the fourth thing is to, at the end of the experience, to make sure you feel grounded, you disconnect from it, you have a glass of water, and you integrate before you dash back into your day, okay? Because that's can be one of the downfalls of not finishing properly, is to just being ungrounded and disorientated and going back into your day without fully being grounded, okay? So what else? I'm just going to look at some questions here. So is everybody happy for me to start the journey? I thought, oh, I'll stop talking about shamanism now, because I think time's getting on and I just want to start the journey. If you've got any questions about shamanism, you can put them in. But so to get yourselves comfortable to receive the journey, and all I was going to suggest that we're going to do today, thank you, Maria. What I was going to do today is I'm just going to play the drum, and it's an invitation for you. I'm not going to give you any structure to the journey. I'm going to suggest that you visualize yourself in a space in nature that you know well, and really close your eyes now and connect to that space in nature. And actually, while you're going to do that, I'm going to open the space and I'm going to call in the spirit guides, okay? So I'm just going to do this very quickly. And as you hear the rattle, I'd like you from your heart to open up to the willingness to invite in your spirit team, helpers and compassionate beings, light beings, power animals, magical beings, whoever you feel called to invite, or just really, again, inviting that possibility that there are spirits there who are willing to connect with you, inviting in your ancestors, connecting to the spirit of the place where you are, connecting to the spirits that are holding this virtual space for us here and everyone who's listening on the recording. So as I rattle, that's what we're going to do. Reaching out to all the spirits, welcoming, helping spirits to guide us here for our journey this evening, asking that spirit helpers and light beings Connect to everybody who is listening. Guidance, giving everyone guidance they need and the healing that they need. To feel the transmission of the drum beat and the journey. Opening to the experience that they need. And if we all in our mind's eye imagine ourselves really firmly rooted to the earth, feeling ourselves pulled by the earth and held there rooted, anchoring us. And if you all imagine yourselves leaning up against the trunk of a beautiful tree, and we'll imagine ourselves all surrounded in a circle in a grove of trees, trees of all different shapes and sizes, feeling their strength connecting us, holding ourselves and knowing that we're in a strong, firm container. And also, if it's a practice that you do, then visualize us all in a circle of light, feeling ourselves held here with an intention to connect with the drum and receive healing. And so that's what I'm suggesting for you for this intention, that where I'm going to drum. You always drum with an intention, you always drum with a clear focus, because otherwise when you connect to that vibratory consciousness, you can kind of melt and go all over the place and get very distracted. That was certainly one of the downfalls for me when I first started journeying. I was just so excited about everything. I would kind of throw my intention out the window and just go, oh wow, this is fun. So hold in your heart the intention. And my suggestion for you this evening is to receive the drum and have an intention to connect with the spirit of the drum and receive the healing that you need. And if you have a greater intention than that, then ask for that intention. But that's a simple intention that I suggest. Just relax, receive the beat of the drum. And what I'm going to suggest that you do is visualize yourself in a place in nature. Let me get my drum. Visualize yourself in a place in nature. And as you hear the drum beat, just allow that drum into your heart. You can focus on your heart, feeling your heart opening to the spirit of the drum and allowing that drum in, feeling your heart opening a bit more and allowing that drum to take you on a journey to help you receive the healing that you need or whatever other your intention may be. And I'm going to stop talking so that you can experience the drum. And so that you know that we'll be finishing, what I will do is I will do 7 long beats and I will change the rhythm of the drum so that you'll know that we will soon be finishing when it's time to finish, okay? So I'll do several long beats and then I'll do a rapid beat of the drum, which is known as a callback. And in that callback time, I suggest you take a deep breath, look around, give thanks for your experience, thank the drum, and make sure you then feel into your heart and then feel into your body to come back into the room, because it means that the drumming will soon be over. And it'll help you remain more grounded if you are able to finish up while the drum is rapidly calling you home. Okay, so here we go. Focusing on your intention, allowing the drum into your heart, opening up to receive the healing you need. Hey everyone. So take a deep breath and really feel yourself physically in your body. You might want to do some movement through your body. You might want to have a glass of water, move positions. If you've got a journal with you, this is the time to write down anything which comes to mind or anything that you're feeling after the journey. And if anyone wants to share their experience, then you can place in the chat, or maybe I can unmute you. So the important thing after a journey is to really integrate and be calm and not rush into your day. It's also really important, I always note down absolutely everything, because in a journey, everything is there, is part of the healing, is part of the answer to the question that we're holding. And also the revelation will continue once we've kind of put the question out there to spirit, or we've put an intention out there. It continues to flow, and it might come, you know, while you're dreaming, or, you know, there might be a call from, you know, those synchronicities, call from a friend who you've been speaking about or thinking about, things like this. So, but the basic principle of a journey is to connect with these other worlds, this altered state of consciousness, and in this altered state of consciousness, really reconnect, remember that kind of heartbeat of the earth, the heartbeat that is in you, that creative vibration that connects all living things, and to bring yourself back into harmony with that. And that's what the drum does very, very quickly and easily for us. And what else was I going to say? And then when you finish traditionally with a journey, you would close the space. You give your thanks to the helping spirits who are here and have been holding the space for us. And you give thanks and physically close down the space. And somebody asked about cleansing actually before we started. And one of the techniques I use for cleansing actually is I always like to use herbs. So I have a variety of different herbs which I will burn to cleanse, but also I use sprays if I can't burn. So obviously some places don't like you to burn things. So I have sprays, for example. This is a spray that I use which has got flower essences in it, which I will use to help cleanse. In terms of disconnection, again, we can do visualizations with white lights, physically washing your hands. Some people like to use salt. There's all different ways we can cleanse. We can work with Reiki symbols. We can have guides. We can connect with guides that will be protectors for us. Guides which will be gatekeepers, so they won't let anything into our space. There's all sorts of different techniques we can use. Some people like to use crystals for cleansing and for protection. I mentioned books. Thank you, Tiggs. Okay, I wondered if I had any here. Okay, so any books by Sandra Ingerman are great. She also has one with a drumming CD which has got tracks on it. There's also sort of the traditional text. When I started to do shamanism about 10 years ago, I'm looking over there because my books are there. The Way of the Shaman, is sort of Michael Harner's very traditional way. He really established this sort of Western shamanism, if you like. So it all, in a sense, the techniques I use have come from that. But as a practice, shamanism is evolving. So it's almost becoming so much more than that now. So that's the basic one, a Sandra Ingerman one that I was mentioning. It's very small, and I bought it years ago because it has a CD in it. There's a book by one of my teachers, Carol Drum, The Rhythm of Shamanism. That's lovely as well. Also, one of my favourite books is called Singing the Soul Back Home by Caitlin Matthews, and that's a lovely book because it's really helpful in terms of helping you learn to connect with the drum and journey. So that's a good one. Sally says, thank you, amazing. Kelly says, thank you, that was awesome. I actually heard voices of elders in the drumming. They were singing, so no words. How lovely. The brand of vegan drum, that is Remo. You probably can't, I mean, that's all backwards, isn't it? But they're Remo buffalo drums, and you can, if you put them into Amazon, you would probably find them, but you can find them in a supply, in a shop, probably local to you. Lindsay says it looks like the moon. Yes, and it's really interesting that you say that, because the drum is, well, for some cultures throughout the years, the drum has been thought to represent the sun, some for the moon. Traditionally, the drum was associated with priestesses and the oracle, and so it had a feminine, you know, with the moon, feminine association. So yeah, the drum in itself is a very powerful symbol, and I like to think that when I'm drumming, I really am connecting with all of the drummers who have gone before me. And if you have your own drum, if you feel, you know, that you want to get your own drum, I totally would encourage you to get your own drum. And when you first get it, you know, drum as much as you can, connect with the spirit of the drum, because that, then you'll start to form a relationship with your drum. Can drums be shared with others, or should they only be personal to you? That's a really, really good question, Lindsay. Yeah, sometimes I'll flinch if somebody wants to play my drum. It depends. It depends on the drum. I know that sounds a bit funny, but it depends on the drum, because my drum, particularly this one, the one that I have made, it's a character. And it doesn't not often like it. Same with rattles, all sorts of instruments. So some drums that I have are ones that I've specifically got to share with my students, others not so much, because they're more personal for me and the personal journeys that I do. So it's up to you whether you share your drum with others. And if you see somebody's drum, always ask before you pick it up. Don't take it for granted, because they have spirit. So yeah, don't just grab a drum and start drumming. I've put together a very mini course on shamanism basics, okay, and I'm going to email you about that, because it's £39 and it's got a couple of journeys in it, lots of explanation, the videos about journey help, sort of journey 101, journey preparation, and all that sort of thing. So if that is something that I know the content's great, but if it's something that you want to do, if you want to start doing more journeys at home, or if you want to start getting a drum, connecting with spirit, or joining a drumming circle, then it will provide you with a lot of pointers and guidance that will get you on your way. And really the idea of it is to give you the basic structure of the shamanic journey practice. So we've had a little hint of it tonight with that short journey, but there's more to come if you're interested in doing the shamanic basics. Shamanism basics is what I've called it. Okay, so thank you everybody. Thank you from my heart, and from your heart, please thank the spirit world and continue that connection. Even if you journeyed, you go, oh, it was relaxing, I fell asleep, blah, 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 blah. Persist, okay? And if you have a connection, feel into that connection. If you have a color, feel into the color. If you have a feeling, connect with that color, journal about it. What does that mean to you? Because these little connections suddenly become really big connections and important relationships the more energy and effort we put into them. So don't disregard this sort of small things, or nothing happened, you know. The nothing is key. So connect with that nothingness and keep going there, keep following the breadcrumbs, because it's a process of direct revelation. So it will be revealed to you, but you have to persist. You can't just sit there and expect things to come to us like they might do if we're passively meditating. The process of shamanism is get out there and go and start doing and exploring, okay? So thank you for coming, everybody. Bye.